And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. It's Tom, Erika, and Josh. And if you can believe it, we've had 100 days of Trump. That was yesterday.
Only 100?
Like the first term, it feels like it's been at least a year. It's been a long. Say what you want about Trump. He knows how to keep attention on him, and unbelievable. It's only been 100 days. But we thought at this point, after he did his 100 days rally, actually in my hometown of Warren, Michigan, which is crazy. The Macomb Community College is basically the local community college where I grew up. We thought it would be a good time to take a look back to assess some grades for different categories at 100 points in time. Yes, it's only been 100 days, but a lot has been done and a lot has changed. So we are going to sit here and grade these different categories. Outside of that, we do have some good news coming from North Carolina that I'd like to bring people up with. We're going to address the latest interview that he did, I believe, in my Twilight Zone. And it's going to be a great show all around. So how are we feeling, guys?
I like passing out grades. That's why I homeschool my kids. It's awesome. Let's do it.
No, I was just thinking, like, nothing hits better than on the day after the NFL draft grades. You know what I mean? From people who know nothing. But every time I see it, I'm like, well, I got to see how my team was graded by someone who I don't know and probably has no expertise. You know what I mean? I got to see. It's a trick. I've tricked you if you clicked on this. But I like, we can play along with the chat here and drop in the comments what you think. Thank you for joining us live. Before we get into that, though, we have the sponsor of today's episode, making it all possible. Charity Mobile. We got to talk about Charity Mobile. They're the pro-life phone company. When you switch to Charity Mobile, 5% of your monthly plan goes to the pro-life, pro-family charity of your choice at no extra cost to you. It's everyday living made effortless giving. It's time to make the switch. With the same nationwide coverage as major carriers, Charity Mobile has a variety of plans to fit every need, from basic talk and text options to unlimited data, and you can get up to 8 lines. They offer a range of phones, from simple flip phones to the latest 5G smartphones, or you can bring your own compatible device. Plus, no contracts, no termination fees, and a 30-day guarantee. So, no risk in giving them a try. Charity Mobile has been in business for nearly 30 years, providing U.S.-based live customer service by phone, chat, or email. So, why not buy the way you believe and support causes that matter to you with your everyday phone use? New customers can get a free phone after instant credit, plus free activation, free standard shipping with the promo code LOOPcast. Support the show, support Charity Mobile. Do good with your money. Charity Mobile. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's episode. And Erika, you were actually reading through none of the first 100 days were surprising if you paid attention to this simple trick. What was that trick?
Yeah, so this simple trick was pointed out by Niall Ferguson over at the Free Press, and he reminded us that, in fact, during Trump's campaign, Josh will remember these, there was a series of 37 short scripted videos it was called like the 47, right? The 47 agenda.
Agenda 47,
Agenda 47. And each of these very tightly scripted videos explained exactly what he was going to do. And in fact, Niall went back and watched all 37 of these videos, and it's really just what we've seen. They were basically the scripts that became the basis of the executive orders that he has rolled out. And I mean, going back and watching them in retrospect was pretty fun. I mean, this one here, I don't know if you can pull up the Doge.
I'd love to.
The impoundment. Let's do the impoundment video.
Niall made a good point too. He's like, these, you probably remember these somewhere in a memory hole, but the reason why they didn't actually get more coverage during the campaign was because Kamala Harris had nothing to counter them with.
She had no response to them.
It's not that.
Okay.
Josh, what do you got?
No, it's just that he did this in lieu of going on the road against DeSantis because he felt like he didn't have to compete against DeSantis and the rest of the Republicans in the primary.
Right. This was
and he just rolls out these videos and people, on social media, and people loved it.
Got it. Okay.
They're pretty great. Well, here's one.
Here we go.
Crooked Joe Biden, our disgraced president, has wasted trillions of taxpayer dollars in less than 3 years, causing uncontrolled inflation that is crushing working families. Reining in Biden's wasteful and unnecessary spending is vital to stopping inflation and rescuing our economy from ruin. But the pain of the spending cuts must be borne by the special interests and Washington bureaucrats, not by American families and American seniors in particular. For 200 years under our system of government, it was undisputed that the president had the constitutional power to stop unnecessary spending through what is known as impoundment. Very simply, this meant that if Congress provided more funding than was needed to run the government, the president could refuse to waste the extra funds and instead return the money to the general treasury.
There you go. This is the video I like to call the Doge preview video. And it sounds pretty familiar now.
Yeah, and again, what's going to be nice about this is like the Trump administration is going to argue before the Supreme Court that any acts of Congress that dilute that power are going against his Article 2 constitutional powers that was given to him by the Constitution. So he might win.
Right.
But hey, by the way, since starting the program,
yep.
I had a former MSNBC intern back. There's like 10 minutes when that station was conservative, like 15, 20 years ago, and no one remembers it. But during that little window of time, there's this person got an internship there, and happens to be my sister. And she made the comment, you got to change the background color. So what do you guys think? Do you notice this? That you guys even pick up on this?
I did notice the change, and it looks sharper, and the lighting looks great. It really like allows the lighting. Yeah, you just look better.
You're getting some professional help, Josh.
That's right.
Looks good.
Okay. Well, Josh, you look very handsome today. And these are the categories in which we're going to score the administration 100 days in. Okay. First one, personnel. Second one, border. Third, tariffs/trade. Economy is going to kind of get rolled in with that, but I have them separate for now. Social issues, military/foreign relations, and government efficiency, as alluded to in that video before. Okay. So starting with personnel. Okay. Just a quick summary. It's been pretty highly publicized, so we're not going to beleaguer on this, but we have Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Pam Bondi, Attorney General, Douglas Burgum, Secretary of Interior, Secretary of Ag, Brooke Rollins, Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez DeRemer, Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Eric Turner, Transportation, Sean Duffy, Energy, Christopher Wright, Education, Linda McMahon.
Yes.
WWE fame. And then Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Douglas Collins, Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Josh, I shall start with you. Strongest thoughts on the personnel.
So you're just you want me to go through each individual one or
doesn't have to be each individual. Who stands out to you as the best? Who do you not like? And then what's your overall grade, would you say?
I mean, Kristi Noem has bothered me with this whole cosplaying. I really wish she would just let, Tom Homan get, handle the enforcement. I mean, the job has been done exceptional. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I feel like she's been doing a little bit too much of the cosplaying stuff. It's like, wanting to be on the radio. It's one thing to be there and to experience it firsthand, to see what's going on. But it really felt like a lot of the stuff she was doing was for the cameras. I didn't really have any appetite for that, as opposed to Sean Duffy, who's been, not a show horse, but a workhorse. And he's a guy who understands
Absolutely.
TV. He was once on MTV way back in the day. He is just, he had a crisis fall in his lap on the very first day he was sworn into office with the crash at Reagan National Airport. And then he's gone ahead and he's been proactive on that. He's been visiting he's been on top of the air traffic control issue, trying to do upgrades and trying to get more people involved in that pipeline. But he's also been, working on other issues in transportation as well. So he's just been all over the place and very transparent about it. So I think he's done very well. RFK, he's been big on the Maha stuff, and he did begin with something. It's more of a carrot than a stick, but he's trying to get these corporations to get off of these,
food dyes.
Industrial food dyes, right?
My Tostitos. No more food dyes for Tostitos.
Yeah, part of the problem with that is it literally is going to take some time, because we're talking about such a large market, and you need more crops to be grown to be able to get the dyes and stuff like that. So I know that Pepsi and some other companies mentioned that they were going to be phasing out some of these dyes. But it is going to take some time for us to see that in the marketplace. But again, that was a good first step towards, what he's trying to do. And it's kind of nice to see. I don't think it's the be all end all getting rid of those food dyes, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, 100%. So overall grade for personnel, Josh?
Yeah, I would say, a B, just because it's so early. It's hard for me to, to say anything about it, but like
good politician answer. I need you to be more of a commentator. I need to go really hard.
We're
Well, I
also
mean,
going to be honest. If it's a B is your honest
B works.
assessment.
B's honest. I mean, like, you know,
Okay.
it's not like it's totally wowed me and blown me over, but they've done a good job.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, I'm still waiting to see on some of this stuff, like the Attorney General Pam Bondi. I know a lot of people are frustrated that they haven't seen more action done with
Yeah.
Epstein, and I get that. Like, I want to see more action. You know, like, actually, if you would have asked me this about a week ago on her, I would have said, I don't know, like a B minus, you know, but like I would say now for her a B plus, because look, going after the judges that are harboring criminals and committing, you know, acts of, you know, crime
That's
themselves. And they're like, well, this would be very embarrassing if we put judges in jail. We better not do it. Like, no, we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do. So I think that's good.
Yeah.
Erika, strong thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo Josh on a lot of this. I'll pick up on a couple of guys he didn't mention. So obviously, J.D. Vance, I think that just the contrast between what we had the last 4 years in the vice president's chair and what we have seen from J.D. Vance, I mean, traveling around the world,
Well, he's
articulating.
not in the cabinet, technically, but
Oh, he's personnel.
Okay, Josh.
He's
Personnel.
You know what?
Don't get all
we
legal
elected
on this.
him. Come on.
Oh my gosh! All right, we elected
I
JD
take
Vance.
it.
Well,
I
good
take
job,
it.
us.
A plus
A
plus
plus to
for
us
JD.
for electing JD Vance. Marco Rubio, I think he's been doing a great job. Scott Bessent, that's been a surprise for me. I mean, I didn't really know anything about him until he was having his hearings and then confirmed. But listening to him and seeing him sort of give the explanations of the tariffs and to start to do these negotiations with all these countries over the tariff wars and the trade deficits and everything there. Tough job. Something else I wanted to mention about Sean Duffy and his efforts in North Carolina. Again, like North Carolina after those hurricanes, just, I know you're going to talk more about this, Pogo, but the area is just devastated and really abandoned by the Biden administration. And of course, that's where we had these FEMA officials going in and skipping over houses with Trump signs. So Sean Duffy, within several weeks of being confirmed and sworn in, he reopened with the interstate there, in Interstate 42, which had been washed out by the hurricane, and it had a huge economic impact on accessibility. And that was, he got stuff done. And you compare that with Pete Buttigieg and the $42 billion for broadband in rural areas, and who got zero.
And remember
the energy charging stations.
And the thing is with the energy charging stations, they literally needed to have a multicultural like meeting first before they could even this community could be eligible for it. You're
and
like,
so
what
it just
the world?
never happened.
Good luck, Pete. Yeah. And he had 4 years, by the way.
4 years to do it. So in terms of personnel coming in, knowing the mission and working to get stuff done in spite of all the pushback from the judges that we've been seeing, I think that it has been, I would give it an A minus on that.
Okay.
Go a little higher.
Yep. I would say solid B. I think he made a lot of good points. I think
You're agreeing with me on the solid B. I love it.
I'm agreeing on solid B. I think I got solid B here.
They all come around, Josh. Everyone comes around.
But I didn't fold. I stayed true to my solid B.
Josh, I'm testing you. I'm testing
you.
Actually, on Secretary. So you got to give Eric Turner a lot of credit on the North Carolina stuff too. We're going to talk about that later, but he's housing and urban development.
Yeah.
And I believe the grant work went through him. But I will say there's things I'm a little bit frustrated with in terms of the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. There's things I'm very happy about. And I wonder at 100 days in, when the dust all settles, what are we going to see there? How much because with personnel, and you're basically taking over a hostile government. It's like you take over the ship, but everyone hates you. And so I actually am really happy in a lot of ways that heads rolled. Like for the first time, maybe in my lifetime, like they just didn't keep the same people, fourth branch of government. And so there are some dust ups, no question, to be expected. And you're going to be able to evaluate people better after about 1 year. So I'd say at this point, what am I grading people on? I'm probably grading them on their ability to communicate with the American people. And I know that it was a very intentional choice upon listening to a lot of interviews from these people, what the process was for selecting people for these. And so much of it, even for diplomats as well, was can you communicate in front of a camera? Can you speak to the public? Do you get rattled? Can you stay on message? And talk about, we're comparing a lot of things here. We're comparing personnel for the Biden administration. We're comparing Trump 1.0 even. And if you even were to look 100 days in, Trump 1.0, this is already the point where he started firing people from his own cabinet because they weren't on board with the message. They were literally doing things that were illegal in some cases. So in terms of like message and strong and being on the same page, like A+. But even with that message, maybe I disagree with some of the elements, say Marco Rubio with the student visas for certain individuals, or Howard Lutnick with the tariff policy being chaotic. There's certain frustrations, but I'd say as a whole, really good job of messaging. And I think it's important, especially in the era of politics we live in now, where you go on podcasts, you speak right to the public. You need that. Or in a vacuum of that, it will be done for you. So I think they're doing a good job fighting. On the next one, I will say on border, I mean, I can give a quick grade on this one. I mean, that's an easy A++, beyond my wildest expectations. Probably the hardest job, the most he's ran on. But Josh, in general, how are you feeling about the border?
I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, when President Trump had said, I mean, he nailed it when he did his address to the nation, because he had said, everyone had said in Washington, everyone in the Beltway, well, you got to go with this James Lankford, Mitch McConnell approved, watered down,
the bipartisan border
bipartisan immigration enforcement bill, which would have been terrible because of all the poison pills inside of it.
It allowed amnesty up to 1.5, I think, over 1 million people a year.
Like, this is the only way that we can make things better at the border. And remember, Donald Trump sensibly, and a lot of other conservatives, like, no, do not. You need to stop this bill. This was last year. We had to stop this bill. And then what gave the talking point, the Democrats thought this was a great talking point for them. Like, oh, look, it's now Trump and the conservatives are obstructing and we're trying to fix the border. After having done nothing for 3.5 years, suddenly they get religion.
Worse than nothing. Truly worse than nothing. They did the opposite. They
exactly.
Actually intentionally opened everything up.
And so what happened is we just needed a new president.
Right.
And we elected a president who actually enforced the border. So let this be a reminder. Democrats, the Democratic Party, their leadership were perfectly capable of controlling the border, and they deliberately chose to keep it open. This was intentional. This was on purpose. They wanted to transform the country by importing millions of future voters. They wanted to completely transform America. Never, ever let them forget this. I want them to apologize every day and twice on Sunday. And then years from now, maybe voters should say, well, we'll give them a second look. But if this whole political party were to go on the ash heap of history, that would be delightful, because they have been obstructionist and horrible on just about every issue. They kill babies. They support all sorts of crazy trans stuff. And they were perfectly willing to have an absolute total open border and created a trail of tears, of misery, hundreds and thousands of miles of people crossing this dangerous through the Darien Gap all the way up into, and so many of these migrants being assaulted sexually as well, women and children.
Trafficked.
Democrats supported this. They were perfectly okay with this. They turned a blind eye to all this suffering. And Donald Trump got into office, and almost immediately our problem was solved.
I mean, I'm seeing like drops 88 to 97% drop in border encounters compared to the previous year. I mean, 97% decrease in legal border crossings, 60% reduction in illegal drug activity. I think what gets missed in this too, we've almost forgotten about it literally within 100 days, was the initial tariff charge on both Canada and Mexico. And everyone started freaking out. They're like, these are our allies, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, do something about the cartels, close your own border from your side, and then we'll talk. And they both did. I mean, drugs are now down. So on every available metric, you're like, it was total single-minded focus, sheer force of will. Our border is now more secure than it's ever been in the history of our country.
Yeah, and someone we didn't mention in the personnel, of course, is Tom Homan. And talk about the perfect man for the job. It was really moving. I watched him. He gave a speech, not yesterday, the day before, reflecting on the immense success at the border. And every time he speaks about it, he gets very emotional. And he said, people want to know, why do I get emotional again? He's like this big bulldog guy, and he speaks so movingly about what he encountered when he was on the border himself. He said, I opened up these tractor trailers, and there were 18 people dead in there who had baked to death. And he talks about the children's bodies that he saw personally. And you can tell that for him, this is very personal, and this is a moral issue for him. And he's so driven, and he is so in line with Trump's promises. Great. I mean, in terms of personnel, and that is like
Stephen Miller too.
Stephen Miller.
I love watching Stephen Miller. It's just a man who is born for the moment that he is relishing in the debates that he engages in. He's like, I would love to talk to you about why we deported gang members illegally here in the country with military flights.
Yeah,
I mean,
send
that's
a message to the world. He
loves it so much. I mean, two guys, different two sides of the same coin. Holman, Stephen Miller, completely devoted to we're deporting people and we're shutting our border down.
And they don't need hair extensions to speak to the American public, unlike the third part of that team.
Bald is beautiful.
That's right. I don't care what your hair looks like as long as you get the job done, people. Come on.
I mean, I was even looking into, so we're talking about just, it's clearly been communicated to the public how serious they are about it, and it's come through in numbers. But even in small actions, for example, we have Trump mobilized agencies like the IRS and the Postal Service for mass deportations. He changed the CBP One app, which for anyone curious about what that was, it was an app made by the Biden administration to offer free flights for people to fly into the country to claim asylum. So of course, thousands and thousands of people were doing this. It was like, well, at least they don't have to cross the border that way. Changed it into a self-deportation tool so that they could say, hey, I want to get out of the country. And many are choosing that option at this point.
Yeah.
He's trying to end birthright citizenship. I mean, that's going to be held up in the courts too. I mean, he has done everything possible. I don't even know what more you could do.
Whole of government approach.
Yeah.
Totally. Not just siloed. So
voted for that. I
voted for that. Seems like we're receiving it. Want him to keep up the
plus.
pressure here. A++. All right. We have the military. I'm going to say military foreign policy.
Ooh.
Josh.
Well, I mean, in terms of the military, obviously Pete Hegseth screwing up on the signal stuff was a thumbs down, obviously. And then he used his private phone instead of a government phone. So that's, security flag. So that's, again, a thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
So it's like, fool me once. But, I think with regards to the whole administration, again, Trump is trying to push for peace. Putin is making it harder. Trump is, I think, doing his level-headed best to try to wind this thing down as best as he can. Obviously, I think it's great that one of the first actions that Hegseth did was to say that we're no longer, taxpayers are no longer going to pay for transgender surgeries. And the rationale he used on it was excellent. It's like, if you aren't sure about who you are, if you feel like you're trapped in the wrong body, military service isn't for you.
Right.
You've got some other problems to work on.
Common sense.
And you're not going to make a lethal warrior, and that's what we need. And so on that aspect, streamlining everything in the military so that it's based on, making sure we have the best, most excellent lethal fighting force. I think they've done a good job. Get rid of the woke stuff, the DEI stuff. So again, Hegseth's foolish and reckless, cell phone stuff aside, I would give it a B.
Yeah. And also we're seeing the recruitment numbers going up.
Yep.
I mean, we're set to exceed the goals for 2025. Some of the trends had started to improve, I guess, last year. That's what the mainstream media is going to tell you. It's like, oh, it's not Trump. It's it's Trump. It's
you don't need to overthink this one.
Yeah, we don't need to overthink, but we're hit to, I think we're at a 15-year high. So this is first time since 2010 that we've seen the kind of numbers of recruitment coming in after 3 years of a major crisis in terms of readiness. So for me, that's, like you said, in terms of Pete Hegseth, there have been foibles for sure, but as a whole, the military up. Foreign policy, I think, like you said, Trump is doing his hardest to bring peace to areas in the world that have seen no peace, but also still taking that peace through strength approach. I mean, the Red Sea, what he's been what they're doing to the Houthis over there, finally, to open up the Red Sea as an area of trade for the world. It's a great gift. I think, there's a long way to go with the Russia-Ukraine and China, obviously. But at least now we have a foreign policy again.
Yeah.
So
It's so
I'm gonna go
interesting
with
doing this
C.
grading because it's hard to almost compare it objectively because things were so bad before.
Right.
Like I even just saw a report, I believe it was Biden's ambassador to Israel, maybe the last one. And he just openly came out and said, he's like, yeah, we never pressured for a ceasefire. Like we just never did.
Yeah.
Even though they said that they did, of course, because they're trying to grab those votes at the last second, but they never did. And so we're basically changing from asleep at the wheel and I mean, just getting taken advantage of on every front all over the world to, all right, we're cutting off the Ukraine aid, basically day one. We're bringing them to the table and negotiate, which I think is fantastic. Negotiating is obviously messy and hard, but we were clearly putting, oh, Josh, you have something to say on that.
Well, no, just your point about like that in the Biden administration that they would allow other countries to take advantage of us. And that's absolutely true, but it's to a bigger, more fundamental point. Like when the far left takes over our government, they don't look at it as, well, we need to do what's best for our country and our people. That's not how they look at it at all. They're like, how can we advance the globalism, the globalist agenda? And so, like, if you're like, well, why would they do that policy? That would harm the United States, even if it helped, let's say, the EU or it helped, the Asian Rim countries. Like, why would they do that? It seems so counterproductive. Don't they realize that's not good for the United States? Like, they don't care. They really, honestly, do not care. It's not even so much that you're like, who are the special interests that are paying off the left and stuff like that? It's like, you guys will get it. Like, that's one of the biggest and fundamental differences between now China. Like, they're a country that does not, the communist control, so it's a little bit different story. But they're not racked with this kind of self-hatred or self-guilt, this guilt that suburban whites have in the United States and also in Europe. And so when we're starting to look at this stuff, Trump comes along and says, this is stupid. And America's like, oh my gosh, finally someone realizes.
America first, yes.
That's why there's this resonance with Trump. Because we get the Beltway types, even on our side, they're like, well, we have to, get along with the world. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to make enemies, but why should we do stupid things?
Yeah, I think for where I think it's been strongest on the foreign policy and most effective so far is actually Iran and what he's done there to undo the damage that we saw, like Obama and Biden just freeing up all of Iran's assets to continue to develop the nuclear program. And Trump comes in and he's like, this is stupid. Why would you give this theocratic, extremist, jihadist Islamic regime in the Middle East all these billions of dollars that we know they're going to spend on Hamas and Hezbollah and like you name every terrorist organization over there? And he's like, this is stupid. Let's just freeze it up again. And he does.
Yeah, because he killed it in his first term. I hear he's even talking about restarting it under a different capacity now. Not exactly the same, but Iran's a huge problem. But I do think one thing I will say, credit to Trump for putting these people in his administration, Tulsi Gabbard, JD Vance. I mean, we were, according to reports, pretty close to bombing Iran with Israel, which I think is insane. That would be World War III, no question. So I'd say I'm happy he put people on his campaign that are tempering the kind of classical neocon warhawk, forever wars, we're going to be liberators type talk. And I think that's a really healthy debate and a good thing to own on the right, because the left, like, seriously, it's hard to even imagine like where we would be right now in terms of global order if something else happened last election. Like, say the bullet wasn't an inch away and we have Kamala Harris. I mean, the way she was talking was like, yep, we're going to be Ukraine to the death, billions more there. We're going to be, the Middle East is a mess. Doesn't matter to us. Like, it's going to be crazy. So, well, I don't love the Gaza-Lago stuff. I don't love everything that's been done in that region. I would say just as a whole, America first foreign policy, and we got to see some things bear out here. The Greenland stuff also hilarious. Never would have imagined Greenland. Maybe he did in one of those videos say that Greenland was going to be ours or something. But I mean, yeah, some of the stuff.
The foreign policy I'm not a fan of though right now is Canada. Have to say, I am very unhappy with the treatment of Canada. I think he threw the election into the hands of, we're getting Justin Trudeau 3.0 with Mark Carney here. And I mean, as far as his work with Canada, though, I'm going with like a C- on that one. Yes,
I agree.
he used
That is-
yeah, I really am unhappy
That is a
with
part.
Canada.
I do have some information on the Canadian election, but before we get to that,
do you?
Tariffs, trade, and economy.
Okay.
Josh.
I mean, you know, you have to grade the rollout of it, the public rollout of it as a C, and then again, like in terms of the policy itself, I give it like a B minus, like, and I mean, I don't think I wanted to go universal 10 across the board, but like we're at the phase of the plan where we're American consumers are paying all the costs and not yet receiving the benefits. And so like some people made the point, like if you telegraphed it 3 months ahead of time that these were going to go ahead on June 1st or something like that, and you gave the market time to kind of price in some of these things, then you would hear more jobs opening up, more factories opening up. But I think Trump realized that the concern there would be if you don't just do it, you're never going to get to it, and there's going to be too much outcry. So he just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off.
Right.
And so I think that's probably why he did it. That's why I'm saying a B minus. Like it's not the optimal strategy, but it's the one that practically he had to do. I just, again, I think to the extent that Trump could kind of explain the rationale a little bit better to the American people. I mean, Besant's done a good job, but he's not the president.
He's not
Right.
Trump, right?
So I do think that just kind of walking people through why we're doing what we're doing would be a little bit more helpful. And just to say, again, if the president of the United States asks the American people to go along with a policy that's going to involve short-term pain, but overall will be better for the country, Americans are a very understanding people. They just like to be leveled with, And so to the extent that he, why doesn't he do like, when he announced this, why didn't he do like an address to the nation and just kind of walk it through like, okay, guys, you're going to pay more prices for certain things, but overall, what you're going to start to see is factories opening up all over the place and more jobs in America, and that's just going to create a long-term, stronger country. Too many CEOs, too many politicians only care about the next quarter. I'm the president of the United States. I got to be sure that I'm concerned about the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years going on into the future. And that's why I need to do what's best for the American people. If he had said something like that, dude, I think the polling would have not softened like it had. Now, at the end of the day, I think Trump is the kind of person who's like, I dodged a bullet. I don't care about temporary polling. I'm going to do what I think is right. And I have a feeling, even if I lose the House, in 18 months, I think the economy is going to rebound and we're going to be a lot better spot by the time 2028 rolls around. I'm not even on the ballot. He kind of thinks he might be. He won't be.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Trump 2028 stuff.
That was so fun.
They made hats with it on it, and just no heads are like exploding all over the place.
Trump just likes to do this. He likes to troll. I mean, that's what the thing with Canada was, a trolling thing. I think it went way too far. But like the 2028 thing with his son wearing the hat, and then also, like someone made the comment, Emily Zanotti, she's like, saw Trump with this. He kept wearing a white MAGA hat with gold lettering so much for the last few days. She's like, it's almost like he was trying to audition for the Pope. And then literally someone asks him about what's going on in Rome. And he's like, I would be a great Pope.
I'd be a great Pope. That's what I would like to see.
So here's my question.
But
if he did get elected, right, Pope, like what would he take as his Pope name? I mean, is he so proud that he'd be like, no, Trump is my name?
Trump. He would keep Trump. No question.
Pope Trump.
You serious? That's not even
he'd
a question.
Have to keep right? He'd have to, like, my name's already perfect.
Pope Don.
I looked at my name again and I said, this guy is perfect.
Oh
no
my
change.
Gosh, man. It's like we are bringing Doge upon the Vatican. Here's Elon Musk.
Doge.
Man.
The Vatican could use a Doge. Can I just say the bank? Like,
yeah,
they could use a little.
Free that is actually very true. The Vatican finances have been absolute shambles.
Oh my gosh.
And they are not looking good.
So I would like to make a quick comment because I think you really nailed it. I actually would have loved to see an address like that. I know he had his Rose Garden ceremony with the placards.
The Liberation Day, which was kind of trolly. It was a trolly ceremony.
And people's best guess on how he calculated the retaliatory tariffs were using AI. I think if it actually just was 10% across the board, which he basically promised leading up to it, it would have been better.
Oh, 100%.
because it would have been easily
Yeah.
understandable and able to react. But the retaliatory thing made it all confusing, and nations didn't know how to react, and like everything was in chaos. And I think the troll stuff's fun, especially when it comes to the economy. Like I'm thinking, for example, an impact of this will be college graduates right now are graduating with tons of uncertainty, and places have hiring freezes, right? Because they're trying to figure out what's going on. That's a real impact.
Mhm.
Markets need certainty. So even if you are making good moves, I think philosophically, I think it's fantastic, right? Like he's the first person to talk like this. This is a huge change, but I think it's a good one to strategically position America for the future. And we need to address the China problem. That's a Band-Aid that needed to be ripped off 20 years ago. I mean, we should have never let them into the World Trade Organization. NAFTA, I mean,
most favored nation.
I saw a fascinating video about how NAFTA basically killed the eccentric NFL styles. Did you see this, Josh?
I did not.
So the
I need to find that.
It's a great video. The NFL basically used to license their teams out to like any company that could pay the fee. And then the fee would go to all the different teams to help them with stadiums or whatever. And so in the 90s, or a little bit before the 90s, there were so many different companies, and a lot of them American companies, making NFL gear that they were all competing with each other creatively to make, you know, the newest and the craziest and the wildest. So that's why you see like starter jackets or like Apex jackets that were just wild. Like even if you look at what the coaches were wearing at the time, crazy. But then NAFTA happens, and all of the biggest companies with the global supply chains had a huge advantage over, say, small American company making something kind of wacky. And so that's why now you see this like minimalist
all the
made
same.
by
The sameness.
like Puma or Adidas or Nike, which was essentially a global company at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all the same, but with a different logo. And then they changed their licensing model, the NFL did, for one big bidder to have the rights to all the NFL. So Reebok won it the first time, and then Nike won it the second time. But then all of these American companies that made cool stuff died out.
We speak of beige Catholicism. We can also speak of beige NFL gear. Thank you, globalism.
No, for sure.
It's true.
So much marketing today too is, you know, like it's all
globalist culture is boring.
And it's like, you know, you ever notice like all these companies are changing their logos. Like Eddie Bauer had that cool signature logo. Now it's just like Eddie Bauer, boring, modern.
Yeah. Every company has moved to like a minimalist logo. So it just is like block text.
I mean, the first 5 guys that did it were like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it's like every epic movie in the 90s has to use the same font for, you know, Gladiator did, like Trajan font. I'm like, okay, thanks, guys.
Too much sameness, man.
It's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Because I promised, and I know we got to keep it moving. We got to hit social issues. We still have to hit.
Yeah. I mean, social issues.
Erika, I'll start with you.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as getting men out of women's sports, destroying DEI, all of this, religious freedom, promising to prosecute freeing the 23 pro-lifers who were in jail under the FACE Act. I would say in terms of social issues, culture war issues, we've got a solid A. We've got A minus. I was disappointed. Can I
let Erika finish, Josh, with your little
Josh, for heaven's sake, can I get a, I'm going to say not an A. Yeah, definitely A minus. I was disappointed in terms of the FDA, Dr. Makari coming out and saying he was not going to investigate the mifepristone abortion pill, all of that. Although now with the new study that just dropped, I think that's going to move them towards investigating that. Obviously, the IVF stuff is a huge problem. That would be the sink for me. I mean, that goes from like a possible 99%. He's definitely down the 91.
Well, that's why I can't.
But there's a huge category, Josh. So you can't have one thing.
Well, IVF is a massive thing, though. It involves the destruction of so many babies. That's why I can't give him. He's got to be more like a B. But like, you know, in terms of, you know, what you said with Marty Makary on the pill, he said he was open to it. And so my point with that is I consider that to be a win, because it's like, now that this data has come out, you know, let's give the time for that to, you know, for the American people to learn on this and hear what's going on.
For those who don't know, what was the data?
Well, it was just that Ryan Anderson's group, Ethics and Public Policy Center, came out with that study on Monday, and we reported it on the Loop, which is just said that the adverse effects for the pill were 10 times what they reported. Wasn't it what it was?
No, 22 times. It was 22 times because they'd reported adverse effects of 0.5%, and it's actually closer to 11%. Unbelievable. Stunning.
Exactly.
I think it's
Not
also hard
shocking.
to, last point on social issues, we're comparing it again to the previous administration, which lived in a crazy fantasy race gay communism land.
Yes.
Men are no longer playing in women's sports. First thing he did in office, basically. Transgender individuals or men have to be in men's bathrooms, women have to be in women's bathrooms. I mean, this is crazy we even had to say this, but someone did, and Trump did it, and I give him a lot of credit for that. Pardoning the 23 pro-life protesters, then he also had an executive order on removing anti-Christian bias from government was fantastic. I think it's long needed, and it's shocking it was even necessary after a Catholic president was in office, but legitimately was a problem. So I think just banning DEI, federal government too, which is insane. I mean, we legitimately had DEI positions in our own government.
Right.
Crazy.
Investigating church violence, the vandalism against the churches.
Yeah, so we're comparing in a way to the previous one. So he gets a little bit of higher mark for that too. But yes, I do think I'm happy the natalist conversation is happening.
Yes.
And so
JD Vance is driving that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not. So I think most of American, like we obviously are coming from this, like a very Catholic angle, and not even all Catholics are really at this level too. But I think a lot of people think if you are having fertility issues, the only option for you is to do IVF. And so it's going to be a long, march through that to actually get to the conversation of like, oh, well, no, there's like Nepo technology, RFK Jr. No, there's something wrong with your hormones. Like we need to address that. Right. We're doing things to our water we shouldn't be doing. So I think I'm happy the conversation started, even if it is just at, oh, we like IVF because we want more babies, but at least at the baseline, we want more babies. We need more babies. And then we have a seat at the table to make that case of the ethics behind. So
there's
I'm happy in
opportunities.
Yeah.
There's opportunities. I mean, obviously, we've cut off federal funding, not all of it, but some federal funds for Planned Parenthood and certainly overseas stuff. Right. And so you're seeing, some Planned Parenthoods having to shut down because they didn't receive, maybe because it was from Doge, cutting them off.
Totally.
So you're seeing some of these Planned Parenthoods close down. It's like, oh, yeah. All right.
Well, so on the final one, so I would give him probably B+, social issues. Government efficiency. I think maybe my favorite part of the first 100 days, maybe even the most important part of the first 100 days, was punching the big bully on the block, USAID, in the face right away. And I actually don't know if we would be able to get what we got without Doge in this case. And part of it is Marco Rubio, Secretary of State too, which is awesome. I just don't know. I think Americans intuited that we spent way too much money abroad on bizarre things that made no sense. But to have the receipts of what we were actually funding abroad, just to be able to point to now, pair that with the betrayal of disasters in our own country that were going unfunded, I think laid the philosophical groundwork necessary to just rip apart the swamp.
Yeah.
So I love that part.
And I think it just opened up people's eyes to the idea that the left wing of the country uses our tax money as a slush fund to reward their friends.
Right.
It's not like, what, you're against helping poor people in poor countries? Like, no. I mean, for the most part, foreign policy is when you take the money from the poor people in rich countries and give it to the rich people in poor countries. It's not a good idea. But in this USAID was a total, kiddie fund for all their friends. Like, why are we paying money for a transgender comic book in, Peru? Like, oh, well, because we want to give money to this left wing, organization over there, and that's what they're going to be promoting. I mean, it's like, give me a break with this stuff. It's all garbage.
Yep. So, yeah. Sorry, we're running out of time. We have a lot to cover today.
I know, this is so great.
We could have done like 2 hours just on grading. Maybe I bit off more than we could chew today, but okay. Outside of that, we have Canada, right? So Erika, you started talking about this Canadian election. Canada had their elections yesterday. Yeah. And Pierre Poilievre was expected to win, I think, like a month and a half ago. Like not long ago. It was huge.
Before the tariffs.
Before the tariffs. As
before
of
the tariffs.
January 1st, he was but hands down favorite to win. It was like, okay, Canada has had 10 years of horrible leftist globalist rule. Justin Trudeau, the people are suffering. No one can afford houses. We've got, on the cultural side, we've got the rise of MAID, the medical assistants in dying. I mean, the country was just going to pot. So everyone's like, okay, we're going to have the populist surge in Canada. They're going to turn it around. Canada First was Pierre Poilievre's slogan, and they bombed. The elections, which were held Monday, the Conservatives have lost. Pierre is just out. He's not even
not just lost
he lost his own seat.
He lost his seat. So he's not even like in government anymore. And liberal Mark Carney, who is Trudeau, like I said before, he is Trudeau on steroids. The guy is like a globalist. It's the same agenda. And the numbers coming out of this. Do you have that graphic, Pogo?
I do.
Of how Canadians voted? This was
I made a quick. This was a poll before they voted, but it was an Abacus poll, and it was a question: what is the most important factors when deciding this vote? And then I can zoom in here. Actually, it doesn't look like I can. So we have the divide between Gen Z and 60 and over is insane. So if you look at the most important factors to Gen Z, the exact phrasing of the question was, which two of these are most important in deciding how you will vote? Number one for Gen Z is reducing your cost of living. And number two was making housing more affordable. For 60 and over, overwhelmingly.
That's basic, kitchen table issues.
Right. Survival.
Overwhelmingly, the most important issues to 60 and over, dealing with Donald Trump. About 50% of people that took this survey, 60 and over, said this is the most important. And their least important issue, I thought, was even more revealing: making Canada a better place to live. It was the least cited as the most important going into this election. Just crazy.
This is like, Canada is Vermont, right? This is a country that is populated. It is a dying country. They are not at replacement level. The people who are the highest propensity voters are the boomers who did not have children themselves. And if they did, their children are not having children. They are not voting for the future of their country or their future grandchildren because they don't have many. And so they're just like, I just hate Donald Trump. I'm here to stick it to the man and to relive one more time my protesting youth. They just voted for disaster. They voted for disaster.
They're not like Vermont, though. Vermont is lily white. They're more like California. They've been allowed a ton of people to flood their country, and Canada's
legally
on the route. Yeah,
legally.
But like Vermont, they make syrup. And dressed like Bernie Sanders.
I did a quick analysis of this because I was just like, what? I just cannot imagine how mad you must be as like a 20-something in Canada. Right. Because I was looking into their housing situation, and basically the country has prioritized home ownership as a primary source of wealth. I mean, it's similar to America, right? Like people think about their mortgage as their main source of wealth.
It's how you build wealth. Yeah.
And homes that went from about $100,000 are in the millions now. And I mean, we deal with this similarly, but Canada legitimately has a housing crisis for two reasons. One, because the policies have benefited the boomers who bought their houses super cheap. So like I saw the average home in Metro Vancouver was $600,000. And 10 years later, it was $1.1 million. Pair that with the fact that in 2023, the average legal immigration into Canada was over 1 million. I think it was like 1.1, 1.2 million legal immigrants. And the historical average before that was in the low 100,000s, I think. So you're depressing wages by bringing in all these people. Most Canadians work on the gig economy right now. And then also in terms of social services, now overwhelmed by this massive influx of people. And then housing prices are so outrageous because there's more people competing for the houses that are there right now. And so if you want to rent, even renting is too expensive. So there's,
you nailed it.
I don't, I just, it's going to be.
I have one little thing to help with that. I think your analysis on that was spot on. I mean, but it's like it's not like there's twice as much assets in the economy as there were 6 years ago. So why is it that the housing would double? What is going on here? And it's because, of course, tons of money got poured into both the United States, economy and into the Canadian economy, just tons of paper money flooding it because of COVID. And what happens? People who had means said, well, wait a minute, now there's a ton more money and interest rates are super, super low. Yeah. I'm going to go to the moon and buy a house. That's where you can buy an asset where you totally can't afford it because you're agreeing to pay it over the course of the 30 years. Well, here's the problem. Then the boomers did this, or, and like now they've got these these houses that are worth so much money, and the interest rate is like 3% because they refied it, and they're like, well, why would I sell? And so there's no incentive to sell, because once they sell and they try to buy another piece, it's going to be like 7%.
Yeah.
And so I mean,
we do
I like to tell people like
here.
Housing doubled. We actually are renting. It's like, oh, gosh, I wish we owned a house. It would worth so much. It's like, it's not that it's gone up in value so much. It's that our dollar has gone down.
Right.
That's what people need to realize.
Mm-hmm.
The government has debased the currency because of the whole COVID stuff and the spending. And it's been a transfer of wealth from Gen Z, from millennials and Gen X to the boomers. Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's a transfer of wealth. And I think I saw someone make a good point on this. And I think that however chaotic the rollout of Donald Trump's tariff policy or economy policy has been, I think the argument is so unconvincing to me that Americans, especially people in my position, like younger Americans, are going to be so mad that their toaster went up $5 or like the iPhone now is a couple $1,000s more, because those are luxury items. Things that matter to poor Americans, like Scott Bessent was saying that we had a record number of Americans take European vacations last year and a record number of Americans visit food banks. So energy
Something's wrong.
and food matter
healthy
to people that don't have a lot of money. But of course, Josh, you said people with the assets, they had a fire sale over the course of inflating our dollar because they had access to those markets that most people won't. So if you're looking at a young person situation right now where there are thousands of dollars in college debt because they were told they had to go in order to get a good job, you see housing completely unattainable for the average American, let alone the imagined Canadian young.
Mm-hmm.
And then, especially me in a Catholic, wanting to live a Catholic lifestyle, grow a family, that's expensive as well. Healthcare out of control. It's a losing overall proposition. If we do not reorganize the American economy to actually benefit Americans, and not just fight over whether or not we can get the iPhone down $1,000, I'm afraid that the anger is going to boil over and the literal desperation is going to boil over to the point we're going to have social unrest. And I want to do something before that happens.
To me, that's the tragedy of what just happened in Canada, and why I'm having a hard time forgiving Donald Trump for the role that he played in that. Because America, we just got a shot at a counter revolution. We just got a shot at least starting to a reprieve, right? And Canada just condemned itself to 2-4 more years of going down the same path that they've been going down. And yeah, I know they can recall, or they can have
they might have a snap election.
They might have a snap election. They have a little bit different system than we do. But that's going to take that much more political will and that much more effort now. Whereas they could have been on the road to hopefully recovery that we're going to be on. So.
I mean, what it amounts to is that the Canadian people need to have a little bit more of the hard medicine. Like they're thinking like, oh,
it's going to be hard. It's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt, and it's going to stink. And I agree with Tom. If I were a young guy in Canada, I'd be like, I'm getting the heck out of here.
Yeah. And they don't we just closed our border. They basically just left it wide open. So now there's like millions more of people to compete with. It's crazy to think about. So I appreciate that we have leadership in charge putting America first. And I advise Canada to do the same. Good news, Erika. I want to hit yours because it was pretty sweet.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, going on in Rome right now. These are just some great pictures. The Jubilee for the disabled. And there were some wonderful pictures. Of course, there's, thousands of people there right now because we're in the Pope watch period after the Pope's death. We have the funeral. We have the conclave coming up in a week or so. Josh is headed over as well. But this Jubilee had been planned for the year of hope that we're in right now, prior to the Pope's death. And if you pull up the pictures there with Polina Guzik, just some great pictures there at St. Paul outside the walls, which is my favorite of the 4 major basilica. I love it. It's so beautiful. And this was for families with children who have disabilities ranging from blind from birth, the woman you see there with her seeing eye dog. And then you have, children, families with Down syndrome, a whole range of disabilities just there rejoicing, thanking God for the lives of these children, and just what a countercultural witness. I mean, we are living in the West where 80 to 90% of children diagnosed before birth with Down syndrome are aborted and killed in the womb. Iceland boasts that they have eradicated Down syndrome, which really just means they've eradicated babies with Down syndrome. And to see the church celebrating the fullness of life and see these beautiful faces, just what a wonderful thing. This is like the good news, is that Christ came to tell us that these are his precious ones. And I loved it. So that's
Well,
my good
you
news.
mentioned the St. Paul outside the walls. The thing I liked about that, Paul, of course, was a Roman citizen, so they wouldn't crucify him.
Mm-hmm.
That Romans are given more dignity, and so, but they still had to execute him off with his head, and they cut his head off, and it bounced 3 times, and fountains sprung up for each time, and
Yep.
it landed. Like, that's pretty cool.
I love that story.
And then, if I could slide this in real quick, I'm personally a big fan of the Amish.
Yes.
So a couple things happened in North Carolina over the weekend. The first one I'd like to show, there's a macro and micro to this, right? So, but on a micro level, I mean, how could you not just love seeing this kind of thing? Here we go.
We work mostly in Chimney Rock, some down in Batcave.
These volunteers are members of the Great Needs Trust, an Amish community in Pennsylvania, offering not just their skilled hands and their time, but their compassion as well.
We wanted to help the people that had the disaster. Our heart just felt drawn to come help.
Since the storm, more than 2,000 volunteers have stepped in to help rebuild, and donations have poured in. Kindness from strangers, helping their neighbors.
All of the building material that's going into rebuilding these stores has been donated up to this point, and it's just been a tremendous recovery story that is ongoing.
They are not just fixing buildings in Chimney Rock. They are rebuilding a sense of community.
Dude.
I love that.
So the Amish people from Pennsylvania came all the way to Chimney Rock, North Carolina to rebuild. And a lot of the things that they've been given is donated, but they're donating like all their time and expertise to help rebuild.
Yeah,
North
it's
Carolina.
one thing to donate cash. They just showed up. I mean, that is awesome.
So cool. And the reason I bring that up on the macro level, so Trump's housing and urban development approved $1.4 billion to go to North Carolina, which is awesome. And this is an opportunity, for good bipartisanship. So this was actually approved by the Biden administration on December 21st, 2024, through the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program. What happened was that was approved. North Carolina Governor Josh Stein put together an action plan, and then that action plan was approved in January 2025. So these funds will go. It's actually devoted to long-term recovery, but really warms my heart just to see like government money going towards helping people that need the money and actually need to rebuild after. Imagine that, right? America first. Right. So the cutting of the abroad spending on the ridiculous stuff, USAID, and spending on the right things in America. I do want to point out the times where I think it is being used properly. And I mean, what a great American story, right? Like the Amish coming from Pennsylvania to help out, and then our government helping people out with funds. So hopefully the rebuild continues. They also built a road. I went to Lake Lure, such a cool lake. I couldn't believe it got destroyed.
That's a beautiful lake. Yeah.
It was unbelievable. I went for a bachelor party and we had a great time, but I saw the footage after this came through and it's just, chopped up wood everywhere all over this lake. I was like, man, I don't know if this place is ever going to get back to the prior beauty. It was just like unbelievably naturally beautiful. So really cool to see that. One final thing for the Twilight Zone. I got a quick question, and this is kind of a good opportunity. I think people have joined the show at different points and maybe don't even know. We don't talk about it a ton. I mean, I typically don't talk about ourselves a ton. We do yap a lot. I'm a yapologist. But I got a question. I thought we'd answer it today. Dear Tom, since discovering your podcast, I've been a faithful listener, not always live, but never miss an episode. Just curious about how the podcast started and how you three came together. You are also different and have such well-rounded depth of knowledge among the three of you. Thanks for a great informative podcast, Pax Christy, Marianne.
It's a very nice letter.
Story of LOOPcast. That's very sweet.
I could give the real version.
Sure.
The first real version is that Josh would say really interesting things in meetings, and it actually made me mad because often we'd just be like, can you please get in front of a camera and say it into a microphone? It would do gangbusters. He's like, no, I don't know. And it's like, no, like we're ending this. Like, Josh, you got to get in front of a camera. We're getting Josh in front of a camera. I actually started a podcast in college, so I had some experience just on the tech end. in the format end and the content end. I was doing video editing for Catholic Vote at the time. And so we actually prototyped the original Loopcast with, was it 6 different people?
Yeah, it was like a meeting. We basically recorded a meeting and we're like, let's just talk about stuff. Yeah.
And we'll just see how it flows, see how it goes off each other. And we sent the prototype around the organization to be like, okay, like who'd you like? What'd you like about it? Who fits? And of course, everyone consensus like Josh needs to be in there. He's so good. Josh is so good. And everyone's like, Erika, oh my gosh, like Erika is so refined. She speaks so well.
Aww.
She's a great compliment. And they're like,
that part is true.
Yeah, very true.
Thank you, Josh.
And then they're like, well, Tom, I guess you're the only one that really knows how to do the tech stuff.
Yeah,
so you gotta
and then
too.
Well, if Tom for the tech.
Yeah.
No,
so the 3 of us came together.
Yeah.
And then decided the 3, we tried it out. It's gone through many iterations at this point. We've done pre-recorded 1 time a week. We went, I think, did we ever do live 1 time a week? And then eventually pushed to live 3 times a week.
Well, and first we were audio only. Then we rolled in the video, pre-recorded. Then we did like put in an interview. Yeah, we did a lot of different.
I know we did the video. I'm like, man, I got to lose some weight.
Yeah,
I learned to do like makeup for a camera. Like it's still not the best, but I actually was like, oh my gosh, I need to watch YouTube videos. So
yeah, Josh, you've been killing your makeup routine these days.
I've had makeup before when I did my Fox hits back in the day. You know,
any makeup on you currently?
No.
Okay, keeping it all natural.
You and Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle has said she's not going to wear makeup anymore on interviews. So
yeah,
you know,
she is crazy hot Matrix personified.
Yeah. But I will say,
Twilight Zone personified.
Absolutely been like just a blessing to myself personally and to my family. And I think that what I've heard people like about the show is that we're honest or feel honest, that we feel authentic. And I mean, we do it live, so it's kind of hard to hide what's going on. So it is actually just what happens live. But the differences of perspectives because of the age and the life experience, but kind of united by common mission and common faith. I think not only has it challenged me, made me a lot smarter over time. It's very intellectually stimulating. I've had to change my own opinions over the course of the show. It's crazy, but I really appreciate it. Like it was one of those things where it's like we did it and who knows if people will like it type thing. And I'm just always blown away by the type of people that listen to this show and support us. Like none of it's possible without the loopers. So really thank you to everyone that tunes in. And I really appreciate doing this for you guys. Definitely the best part of my day. So that's a little history lesson on the Loopcast. Hopefully that helps. Twilight Zone.
Woo.
Erika.
Oh, I'm up first.
You're
Okay.
first.
I'm going to go with the China and the church because we are on Pope watch. There is a lot of, machinations going on in the city of Rome. Josh is headed there to straighten out all the cardinals before they actually go into the conclave. So thank God it's going to be fine. But this was crazy. So China and the church. And we talked a lot about when we were doing the sort of Francis look back, China's role and how he really tried to reach out to China. Perhaps his methods were not the most effective. And we had, in fact, there was no delegation from, can you put that away actually? China, there was no delegation to the funeral from China. We got this op-ed from a man, Michael Chambon, who's an analyst, longtime Pope watcher, saying that China just slapped Francis in his coffin. He didn't show up. This is a very unhelpful, quote unquote. Chambon writes, while China denounces American greed and condemns hegemonic tariffs, it failed to honor a servant of the common good. Its absence from Francis's funeral only deepened skepticism among its neighbors and the wider world. Is China truly different from the hegemons it criticizes? Chambon, no, it's not. All right. He also posits that China's refusal to send anyone could have implications in the conclave. Yeah, you think? Though it is too soon to gauge their full extent, it is clear that the cardinals advocating constructive dialogue with China right now will find it harder to be heard. And you know what else doesn't help? This broke this morning. China has appointed a bishop for the Catholics over there. I think it's in Zhejiang province. My Chinese is not too good.
Interesting.
So China, during the sede vacante, China has elected, quote unquote, a new bishop, in spite of the fact that only the Pope can confirm bishops. And so this, again, they're pushing it. They're saying, we run the Catholic Church in China. The underground bishop of this particular diocese over there has been arrested 3 times that we know of already. He's been imprisoned. He's been interrogated. He's been persecuted. And now, during a time between popes, China has said, oh, yeah, we'll just name a new bishop. No problem. So it's a throwdown. It's a challenge. And I hope the cardinals, and I know the cardinals, are paying attention to this. And hopefully they will wholesale reject the previous papacy's policy with China.
Cardinal Zen that's what he's doing. I'm surprised that the Communist Party let him leave, but he was able to leave Hong Kong and head to Rome. He's there now, and he's talking to these other cardinals in frank terms about why the previous deal just was not good for the church. Right. So that'll be interesting.
I don't know if you know, but so the 2018 deal, now China basically can elect their own bishops according to that deal. But the cardinals from China, are they a part of the conclave? And like none of the Chinese bishops are a part of this right now, right?
No, I don't think there are any voting cardinals. So again, Cardinal Zen is over there, but he's 92, 93 years old. So he is not going to actually have a vote. But his presence in Rome right now is really important because the Vatican did not consult with Chinese bishops, Chinese priests, Chinese Catholics even, when they cut this deal. Well, members of the underground church in China.
You know who was instrumental in that deal?
Tell me.
McCarrick.
Yeah.
He was the one that orchestrated the deal.
Thanks for that last gift.
It's true. Now, in terms of the I don't want to say fake, but the CCP, the Chinese government,
I'll say it,
cardinals,
fake.
Those cardinals were not sent. I don't think China sent a delegation.
They did not.
Okay.
Right. So.
Fake.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're
talking about Twilight Zone. I'm like, wake up, guys.
What?
No more deals with China.
I wish they were fake, but the Francis papacy recognized them. So.
Fake. Okay. Josh.
Before I get to Twilight Zone, real quick, the Foreign Relations Committee, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, did not actually have their meeting today as they were supposed to. They didn't have enough members show up, and so a vote on Brian is going to have to wait till tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll get that done. So we'll have more of that in the loop. Also, right now, just offer up some prayers that the hearing that's going on right now involving the religious liberty school case in Oklahoma is before the Supreme Court. Justice Kavanaugh is apparently on fire today. That's what my friend Roger Severino
I cannot
saying.
wait to watch this. I can't wait to watch these clips.
He was challenging Oklahoma to explain how denying religious schools from all corners charter school program is anything other than rank discrimination. So he's bringing it. And what's interesting is, if Roger made this point, it's just amazing how the libs and even the lawyer for Oklahoma is just completely not versed in basic Catholic terms like diocesan and catechism. So they pronounce it and they like, whoa, you don't even, okay, this is a new word for you. So that's just kind of a funny thing.
Not a good look.
But for my Twilight Zone, I thought this would be kind of funny. Maybe I'll go to Idaho this summer. There's a new festival. This guy decides he wants to celebrate in Idaho. We're going to have a hetero awesome fest planned for.
Josh, big event for you. Big event for you.
Josh is hetero
Idaho
awesome.
Bar and restaurant is planning to have a 2-day hetero awesome fest outside the state capital, Boise. To try to counter the Rainbow Jihad programming.
Dude, if you go, we're getting pics and we're putting it up on the Loopcast Insta.
I want to see their flag. Do they have a flag in the works for this? I need a logo. Oh my gosh.
Is there a straight flag?
I think it's just the
guys. It's just like not a thing to
just
celebrate.
The American flag.
Oh my gosh.
Well played, Josh. Well played. Okay, Josh has got a place to. You got a good summer vacation lined up for Idaho.
You're gonna bring Lori?
Well, I'm not taking Tom. People ask questions.
Oh my gosh, I love you guys.
All right, that's that time of the show. Okay, so mine, I've been very excited to talk about. It dropped last night. Trump is back, baby. Trump is back at doing what he does best, badgering journalists. He had an ABC News exclusive. One clip really got out there, made the rounds. It was over deportation. Here we go.
MS-13. That was murderers, criminals in this country. We have to get them out, and we're doing it. By law. And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was photoshopped. So let me
That was photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but they're
there in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
Okay.
I never heard of you. And that's why I did the interview, because I never heard of you.
Now, what picture are we talking about here, right? Because so this is class. This is so classic, and I'm glad we're back because I love talking about it. People are confused. And of course, everyone's picking sides here because this is the picture that he's talking about. Okay. Mm-hmm. It has a picture of his hand. I believe this was taken in some type of, maybe when he was arrested back in the Home Depot parking lot or whatever. And this is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And it has a marijuana leaf, a smiley face with 2 X's, a cross, and a skull on his knuckles, across his fist for the audio listeners. And what people are saying is that Trump thought that it did say, because in this document, they have writing above and below the knuckles saying MS-13, and it also had the name of each of the things. Mm-hmm. And so they're arguing, Trump literally thought that the MS and 13 were tattooed on the knuckles. Other people are saying, of course, no, he knows this was a diagram. He's trying to make the point. I was trying to dig into this, and even I was getting confused. I was like, because MS-13 members had a history of really brazenly just having MS-13 on their face, MS-13 literally on their body. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, trying to evade over time, it got less and less clear. They had things that did actually try to symbolize it. Mm-hmm. So everyone, of course, is arguing now at this point, is this MS-13? Is it not MS-13? I would also like to point out that in social media posts, the girlfriend, I think maybe now wife of this guy, she would even cover with hearts his knuckles. So if you look at this picture here, she's posting this, and she's covering up the knuckles with the symbols on it, implying to me that there is some symbolism behind what's going on here. Now, I mean, this is all besides the fact that 2 judges, independent of each other, have ruled that this guy's an MS-13. He was picked up at a Home Depot with guys that have been identified as MS-13, at least one of them. And a reliable informant said he reached the level of Checo. And now people are so deep into debating this, right? This all besides the point, right? What's so genius about this is Trump has moved the window of what we're talking about here, of arguing as to whether or not an illegal migrant's tattoos actually are gang affiliated or not. We're so far beyond the initial conversation of like, was this bad? Who is this or whatever? We're so deep in it now.
You need to return him to Maryland, right?
Right, exactly. Right. Maryland father.
Right.
We're so far beyond Maryland father now. We're like, oh, now everyone's looking at the knuckles on the tattoos. Why is the girlfriend covering it up? It's just like, it's moving everyone's eyes right to probably where it should be.
He's willing to make himself look dumb because he's wanting to advance the debate.
Totally. Which
100%.
I don't know if people just keep falling for this over and over again, because this is not the first time he's done something like this. It seems like people keep falling for it.
They
And
do,
this is the
because
top
they're
conversation today.
crazed. Yeah. No, it's because they're crazed with like disdain and hatred for Donald Trump. And so he can just string them along until, like you said, we get so deep into it, the other end, that they end up saying things like, oh, it was photoshopped. Like now they're riding herd for MS-13 gang members.
Just allow me to tell you the difference between Donald Trump and previous Beltway Republicans.
Oh,
who
I would
ran for
love to hear
office,
this.
Yeah,
okay?
what's
Go
the
for it.
difference?
So John McCain was tortured, as you remember, in Vietnam. You know,
Right.
he was a prisoner of war. And so then he would go and tell his experiences about it. And like, you know, they would go and ask him, who are the men in your unit? And he said, when he would recount this story, he would just said, I would list off the starting line of the Green Bay Packers or whatever. And it was just such a great story. People are like, oh my gosh, this guy's awesome. Can you imagine you like being tortured? Like, give me your names. You just list off the starting line of the Green Bay Packers. Well, then one time he said, he gave the speech, you know, we're talking years, you're saying the speech or whatever. And he said the Pittsburgh Steelers,
Mhm.
you know. And so then the left,
Pounce.
brilliant. They're like, well, wait a minute. What is it? You said it was the Pittsburgh Steelers, but over here you said it was the Green Bay Packers. And the McCain campaign folded like a cheap tent. And I was losing my mind. I'm like, my gosh, they're going to get you to shut up and never tell this awesome story because you're an idiot. You're so dumb. It would be like the equivalent of saying, oh, when I was in college, I dated Miss Alabama. And someone said, dude, she was Miss Mississippi, not Miss Alabama.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know. She was hot. You're not getting the main part of the story here.
Right. Yeah.
And they would they clammed up and they never said that story again. And Barack Obama's team's like, I can't believe it. We got this guy to shut up about this amazing story of showing resilience when you are a prisoner of war for our country. Like, what a amazing act of heroism, and that you were able to bring bravery and courage and tell that story in a way that made people laugh. Like, that was hilarious. The starting line, the Green Bay Packers. What a profound idiot John McCain and most Republicans were. That story, yes, I know. 17 years later, still gets me fired up.
Speaking of, I believe it's the anniversary of the Vietnam War today.
It is today, the official end of the not war, the conflict. What's it called, Josh? Because we never declared war.
Politicians might not have called it a war, but for my dad and all the brave men he served with, you better believe it was a war.
Yep. We'll pray for them all.
Man, I think back now and I'm like, would I have been a hippie? that's a whole nother conversation for another day. Jeez. Hey, great show, guys.
My policy is if we're going to fight a war, I want to win it.
Yep.
I mean, fair.
You're on out.
We did
no
not
more Afghanistans, no more Saigons.
Yep. Okay, great show, guys. If you guys have any more questions, even someone asked us the gorilla question. There's a fierce online debate right now if one gorilla could defeat 100 humans.
Oh, totally. Depends on
any strong thoughts quickly?
Define the humans.
Well, what are the terms?
Children?
Okay, great. We're already getting into
okay, we're getting.
Maybe we'll save that for the next one.
No, we gotta go.
So yeah, if you have more questions like that, email it to me, loopcast@catholicvote.org, or drop it in the comments of the YouTube. That's usually where we'll see. We have some great new content coming to you. I appreciate it. I got some great feedback on the my Pope Francis video. Erika's going to be making a video. So if you want to see more stuff from each of us individually, we're making more of that on YouTube. So go over and subscribe. It's the best place. It's where the hub's going to be. I'll be responding to comments, all that good stuff. But you can join the Champions Club. Best way to help us out. Check out Charity Mobile. Sponsor. Thank you to them for making the show possible. But of course, pray for us. St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, St. Fidelis, pray for us.